Welcome back to the Leeds Rhinos Podcast. It's a Thursday, which means it's our Q&A edition. My name's Phil Daly. I'm the head of Media and PR, and I'm delighted to be joined today by John Fletcher, the Rhinos first team analyst. We're going to be talking all things stats and how we break down games and the vital work that John does to help the coaching staff and really break down a game and understand where we're going as a team. Fascinating insight, and probably John, something you've seen if you've seen games on TV. Sat alongside Brad there on the bench in real time, getting the stats and feeding it back in the coaching staff. So we'll find out exactly what sort of information he's passing on to the coaching staff in the heat of a game. Also, how we analyse matches, and importantly, what stats mean when it comes to the team, and which ones are important, which ones probably get overinflated in the public opinion, but actually aren't too important for what we do as a team. John, great to have you in the studio. You're sort of in the background there on match days, but stats these days are a massive part of the game, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. It's an area that's definitely getting bigger within sport generally, and I think it's certainly from my point of view, it's turning those numbers into useful information is probably the biggest thing that I think that my role definitely is kind of taps into, is rather so because there are so many numbers that you can collect, that it's that turning those raw numbers into information that the coaches and the players can use. So
before we get into the details and how a week to week works and a game day works, just a bit broader on yourself. We've got a question from Daniel Apples on Instagram. How did you end up working at the Rhinos? Well, the link came about. You studied at Leeds Beckett University, a great partner of the club.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it was kind of a bit by accident, really. It wasn't something that was really on my radar. And then there was a guest lecture about it in football, and I thought I'd go along just because I needed something to really spark my interest. And then there was an advert for an internship here from James, and I thought I didn't. And then I looked at kind of like what they kind of wanted, and it was like a knowledge of rugby league, and I've been a fan for a long time, so I was like, well, I ticked that box. And then I was available in summer, so I ticked that box, and I thought, well, it's not exactly what so I was thinking after university, but I was like, I'll have a go and see, and then just see what happens. And then kind of ended up here. So that was in 2021, and I was just filming really that season. And then in the 2022 season, I ended up coding academy and the women and the scholarship, and kind of just built through that. And then that was similar into 2023, and then into 2024, I helped out more with the first team and with Adam, who was here at the time. And then this year, my first year with the first team, and then I was doing my masters as well at Leeds Beckett. So that really helped me, because I think it gave me kind of a different perspective to what I was doing here, and kind of filled in the gaps really, which kind of made me ready to start a first team role here this season. So yeah, it's a kind of accident, but it kind of progressed very nicely. So after that, really.
And you mentioned you're a lifelong fan of the Rhinos. I was looking through some clips earlier in the year when Ryan Hall joined us, looking for some of Hawley's tries, and I saw you in the crowd at Wembley back in 2014. What's your earliest Rhinos memories?
Earliest Rhinos memories probably be in the old South Stand. So that's where my season ticket was, and there was a wall between the South Stand and what's now the AMT. I used to sit on that as well. And then probably my first like vivid memories, probably the 2003 Challenge Cup finals, 2005 Challenge Cup finals. So probably my two. I just remember obviously at Cardiff, and then kind of just loved it. Really, just loved going to all the games, like all the finals and stuff. And kind of, I think it probably helps me now, because you kind of appreciate how much it means to people. Yeah. And I think sometimes. So whilst it doesn't drive your working week, I think on a match day, when I'm walking into the stadium, like you kind of realise how big it is for people, and it is like the main part of their week. So whilst I guess for me, I try and remove that emotion like during a game, because I've got work to do, it is like you kind of try and remember that you are part of something bigger, and so that's probably where that kind of helps me, I guess, now.
And you mentioned how the link came about with the Rhinos with the internship and working alongside James Bledsoe, who's also your lecturer at Leeds Beckett at the time as well. It's great to have that link, isn't it, between the educational element and the real world professional sports environment that you can sort of learn on the job, and then from your case where you've proved your worth and got yourself a job out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very difficult for, sometimes to find that balance, but as I said, I am very fortunate at Beckett. There is that link there, and there's links to lots of other clubs where you can get that experience, and then just see where it goes. Really, I mean, that's what I always aimed to do, was just to see where it went and just enjoy each stage of the journey. And then I ended up staying. So yeah, that's kind of, I think that kind of link it is really important. So yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Well, we'll delve into some of the questions as well. Just on that, in terms of how you got involved, you had a question on Instagram about why you were attracted to rugby league and the Rhinos. We explained that in terms of it being a fan of the club. Someone asked, we've got here a question from a certain Brodie Croft. Now, Brodie's a big listener of the Q&A because he sends in questions every week. We don't normally read them out, but he actually has come up with quite a good one here. If you could research one stat for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I think they're probably, from a usefulness point of view, so like aside from the scoreboard, I'd probably say line breaks would be one. So like how they happen and how they lead to tries, that kind of thing. And if you're not getting them, what does that mean? And then probably from an interest point of view, probably play the balls per try in the opposition 20 metres. That's probably one where I think I don't know if there's a bit of a misconception where you have to be really efficient on that. So like score every set of 6 down there, whereas like you don't quite have to. And then also if that number's really low, well, it probably actually means you're not getting down there very much. But then if it's really high, well, it probably says that your attack's not very efficient either. So that kind of that's probably one that sparks my interest a bit.
Well, Brodie would be glad looking at line breaks, he'd probably feature highly in that particular stat. Someone asked about the game, and obviously we've mentioned there that we see you sat alongside Jamie Langley and Brad Arthur on a match day, and you're particularly here at home, you're live stat in the game where we've got the live feed from the pictures. Warren Brawley, who's also someone we know, he says on Facebook, how does it work during a game? What information are you passing to the coaches?
So the main bit I'll give to the coaches is for halftime. So that's stats related. So that I collect, that's related to our game plan. And then we'll get some generic ones from Opta because they live code during the game that we get access to as well, which is really good. But yeah, so all my clicking is generally stuff which relates to our game plan for halftime, which then Brad can use. With his team talks at halftime, so that'll come through like a sheet at the end of the half that I'll try and quickly write down as halftime's going, and then try get down to the changing rooms and then give that to Brad so he can use it for his team talk. So if you ever see a piece of paper that's on top of his notebook behind the game, that's my writing that he's reading off there.
So they're not getting anything live during the game off you. It's just a.
Sometimes I'll ask for things like how many errors have we had or penalties and stuff. That's kind of like ad hoc that you just kind of bring up and just tell them, kind of thing. So there's kind of things that have sparked their interest during the game. Then I can just answer their one-off questions, but it's not a constant stream of data to the coaches. It's just kind of in the moment kind of thing. I guess probably particularly when we're at home, it's the playback of the footage on the tries and the breaks and stuff. So long as can look at our defensive movements and things like that, really. So that's probably during the game might look quite complicated, but it's not quite as complicated as what it might appear. So.
And then presumably once that final hooter go, that's when you really kick into gear. I mean, everyone else is celebrating and getting ready for team song. You're already on with making sure the coaches have got it to their fingertips straight away. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so everything's kind of getting the footage together from all the different angles and putting that in a package so the coaches can use it that night or that evening. and then I'll go and do my bits. They go do their bits. They'll send it to me, and then it's kind of it is very much a two-way process for review. So so long as I do the defence bits, he'll send his numbers to me, and then Grix will do attack again, and transition, send his numbers to me, and then Brad will kind of oversee everything as well. And then that kind of, and then I'll code the individuals and kind of tidy everything up. So then the players get a booklet on a Monday morning. So with all the individual stats, the team stats, and that's kind of gives them a picture of what's happened statistically during the game, and like it does include some late nights sometimes.
So let's say it's Friday night game.
Yeah.
Game's finished around 10 o'clock time.
Yeah.
So like that. What's your timetable then? When so you're getting onto the coach's computers, putting that on straight away. But then in terms of your coding elements, how long does it take you to do a game?
My coding elements, I'll probably on a Friday night game probably stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning coding, and then I'll have a little nap, and then I'll get up because depending on what the coaches have got going on and how long it takes them to do their stuff on particular games, and they'll send me their codes so the morning after, and then I'll generally get everything put together by about lunchtime the day after, which is quite nice because I think Brad, because we generally have a day or two before we're next in, so it's not too time pressured in that sense. It's more getting it done so everything can be sorted properly rather than rushed. And then it's that kind of, so yeah, probably say don't get too much sleep, but that's just kind of the job really. And say it's something you probably don't think too much about in the moment. It's just kind of is what it is. So.
And the players through the system as well, they then have access to watch their clips as well, don't they? They can watch it on their laptops or phones at home and things.
So the game gets uploaded to Huddle, which is our online platform that we use, and then the players have access to that. So to watch the game after, so some I know, so they'll watch it before they go to bed. So I try and upload it as quickly as possible, and then they'll have time to watch it before we come in for review. So they can have an opinion on the game in our meetings and stuff like that. So
yeah, great stuff. It just you show the time constraints involved are really mind blowing when you look from the outside of the game in there. Just some more questions here. So we've got one from Martin Dickinson from Facebook. Is data more correct than what a player tells you or shows? So I think in terms of it's that isn't the player might think he's had a good game, or vice versa. I generally find with players they're their own harshest critics because they're in it, and actually the stats show they maybe didn't have as bad a game as they probably thought.
Yeah, definitely. I think it depends which stats you focus on. Really, I think particularly this year, a lot of our stats have been really good, particularly defensively, And I mean, if you look at the amount of tackles that someone like Jared O'Connor makes, or the amount of effort areas that someone like Ash or Harry will get through, it's something which the data probably shows how well they have played more often than not. I mean, there are some of the judgment calls, who's got a try cause or a break cause that the players will sometimes question you about, which is fine. I mean, you have to make a judgment at that time, and of course, all the players think they've played, so it's not them who's been responsible for that, which I get, and that's fine. And it's kind of that learning process for everyone, really, I guess. And it's that kind of you don't take that feedback kind of personally or anything, because everyone's trying to go for the same thing. Everyone's trying to get better. So it's just opinions, and everyone, you kind of use the coach's knowledge and James's knowledge and then also what the players think to inform your practice and to inform your coding each week. So hopefully there are fewer instances where players are going to you, well, that's not a try cause, or that's not a break cause. So, but yeah, I think the data probably backs up the players more than proves them wrong or right, really. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And you mentioned there about Jared O'Connor. It's quite an interesting one. Someone asked about Andy G on X wrote, how much involvement does there need to be in a tackle for you to put it as a player's tackle count? Because obviously, third man in or something like that. Or I mean, at what point do they get classed as having a tackle? And then on a similar note, someone was asking about how do you count if someone's missed a tackle? If they were supposed to be somewhere to make a tackle, but couldn't get there, does that count as a missed tackle, or is that just a system error?
Yeah, that's kind of, I guess, judgments like that come with experience and kind of knowing the game, really. I guess I think with how much a player has to be involved, I'd probably say their impact on the ball carrier being held or taken to ground is probably the two biggest things that I look for. It's almost like a sliding scale. So you got a made tackle and then ineffective tackle and a missed tackle. So it's not quite as simple as made or missed. So that's kind of where, if a player's made contact with the ball carrier but not impacted the tackle particularly, so then that would go down as an ineffective tackle. So it does come down to a judgment, really. But so like it is that impact of making sure they're held or taken to the ground is probably the biggest thing that I look for.
I suppose it's the outcome that's the key to it, isn't it? You're not coding necessary technique, but it's the outcome of it that counts. So Joe Sparks on Facebook asks, what do coaches value more from a prop? Tackles made, carries, yardage versus minutes played. What kind of balance of those stats do the likes of Brad Arthur prefer? I mean, do you, in terms of the stats, in terms of positions and things like that, are you giving the raw data to the coaching staff and they're interpreting it, or is there a level of interpretation you do?
Generally, the coaches interpret it. That's kind of something that I feel very lucky that the coaches are very switched on in that sense. So both with the numbers and with the software itself, so I don't have to talk them through too much on the sports code software that we use. But I guess in that sense, for props, it's a little bit in your squad. You need a balance. So we're very lucky that we've got quite a lot of players that can play long minutes in the middle, and then you've got someone like Sam Lasoni that can come on and do his bit. So it's more kind of depends on what player it is. So we might not expect Sam Lasoni to play 80 minutes, but we're expecting that when he comes on to have an impact, which this season he has had really a lot. And then he, during the game, you might look at someone, if our sub situation's not quite how we planned it, that you might need a middle to stay on longer than they thought they would at the start of the game, kind of thing. So it does definitely depend on the player, really, and I guess that then goes back to how you've booked your squad and then also how you've booked your match day team. So there is variety there. So it depends on the player, really. So.
You mentioned there that the coaching staff really buy into the sports code and the stats that you produce. Yeah. And I think when you go down to the Barclaycard training complex down at Kirkstall and you see the various things around the walls a lot of that is driven by the stats that you produce for them and everything else. It really sort of enforces that, I think, for the players and the coach staff, that their numbers are key to how they're judged as a performance. Yeah, definitely.
And it's also that kind of having expectations that people can be held accountable to. And it's that kind of also, as I said at the start, having those numbers, but turn them into something meaningful. So whether that's part of our game plan, that if we know if we hit a certain number, then we're more likely to win. And then that's proven over the season, or if a player gets particularly high numbers, then they're rewarded for that, and that kind of thing, which I think creates a lot of buy-in from both staff and players.
Definitely, and you can see that just how everyone's, they're all aiming for those targets, aren't they, and getting those weekly rewards off Jamie Lang that Langers has spoke about on our podcast previously. Question from Tommy Pouncey, who's part of our PDRL team. What data points do you think are most valuable to the coaches, and what's the most underrated statistic? I like that.
I think each coach will value their own, well-placed value on different statistics. I think probably from my perspective, I'd probably say that possession and territory are quite important in the sense of not that in like a football sense where you might have 60-70% possession, because that happens very rarely, but just having your fair share of that, so you give yourself an opportunity to execute what you want in attack, and then also so you're not putting yourself under too much pressure for too long. Most underrated stat, that's quite a hard one, because I guess I'm not too sure really, to be honest. So like, because in my job there's kind of
all stats
like,
are equal, John. You don't like picking out one stat over
the I think because we value certain ones that outside that I don't know which ones people take notice of or not. So it's probably quite difficult to say what's an underrated stat.
On the flip side of that, I'm sure if you're watching a game on the telly or something like that, and a stat gets used to try and demonstrate something, and do you ever find yourself screaming at the TV and go, "That doesn't mean that at all. You've just got that completely wrong." You ever sat there pulling your hair out?
I am terrible for watching games on Sky at home. I have to have the commentary off, and I just talk the game through my dad, and he's gone, "John, just shut up," because I just basically talk through so much that I think, and then like if certain teams are playing, and then I'll just tell my dad what they're going to do, and then they'll do it, and he's like, "Well, let's got to turn over now because there's no point."
You've spoiled the ending.
Yeah, this kind of thing. So there's not too. I think from a TV perspective with their commentary, I think it's so like a lot of stats can be used like whichever way you want them to. So it's not too much, and I think a lot of them are used to create a narrative that they want at the time, which is fair enough because that's their job. And I think that's kind of, whereas I might look at that differently and then look at the other team where it's like, well, actually, they're not doing too bad either, but you've not focused on them kind of thing. So
yeah, I mean, you could look at a high tackle count and think a team's under pressure, but actually, if they're doing all them tackles in the wrong area of the field, then you can be strong defensively, but that doesn't mean that you're on the back foot, I suppose. Exactly. Do you think in this country that the wider public are getting to understand sports stats a bit more? I mean, the American sporting market, it's all, you look at sports like baseball or basketball, or American football, they're all like, there's a general understanding in the general public about what those stats mean. It's getting a bit more in this country with football and XG goals and all that sort of carry on. Do you think people understand it's a bit more these days?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's that kind of thing that people are more comfortable like with seeing numbers, and that's kind of what they want to see as well, or can see. And I think, but I guess on the reverse of that is that you've still got to remember that the game is played by people on a field. It's not like a Football Manager simulation where it's just like spreadsheet after spreadsheet. So I think that's something where a lot of the numbers as well are descriptive. So kind of describing stuff that's already happened rather than predicting anything too much. But yeah, like I think there is definitely a trend towards spectators being more comfortable with seeing data and being more interested in it as well. As I say about football, so about XG, that kind of makes me laugh sometimes because it's just because it's a model that's very hard to predict exactly. So, and then kind of people focus on it a bit too much, I think. But
you mentioned Football Manager there. You must be a demon on Football Manager.
So I was when I was a teenager. So Football Manager 2015, 2016, 2017 was my kind of...
your golden era.
Yeah, like that was my kind of thing. Because I'm a Plymouth fan, you see. So I used to take them from League 2 at the time up to the Premier League. That was my...
We've all got to have a dream.
Yeah.
In terms of... another question here... So someone asked there, and anyone who listens to the Lot Pod, the fans podcast, they're often complaining about this. From your experience, how accurate are the match stats on the Super League website? Because they're not the same stats you get. We obviously work with Opta on those, on the stats that we get. Presumably, different data sources and different ways of collaborating things are pulling in different results.
I don't go on the Super League website too often, but I think I don't know how much they update that after Opta have updated theirs. So Opta will update their numbers sometimes during the week after they've been quality controlled. So that's so that's where we get ours, and then also kind of the definitions of things. So what they're called on the Super League website isn't always what they're called on Opta. So I don't know whether there's a bit of crossed wires there. So, but yeah, I wouldn't take the Super League website too much as gospel, to be honest.
It's just to give a guide.
Yeah, I think so.
A rough overview. And in terms of the game and the numbers that they produce, obviously for certain players, it can be key to what their performance, particularly presumably lads who are getting limited amount of game time, they really need to make an impact on that time they're on the field. Yeah. Is there a weighting in terms of the minutes they've played? You know, someone like Lockie Miller or Ryan Hall is always going to get big meters because of the position they play and the fact they play 80 minutes every week. Yeah. But Cooper Jenkins coming on and making the meters he does in a short period, or Sam Lasone coming on. Yeah. Does that get weighted in terms of its importance?
So there's some statistics that are it's like meters per carry, which obviously that kind of gets adjusted for how many carries I've had, or something like tackle efficiency, which is a percentage, which then kind of kind of adjusts for how long they've been on and then how much they've been involved. But I guess explicitly that kind of the coaches kind of recognise that in their reviews after with them individually. I think Cooper's probably quite a good example. That at the start of the year there are some games where he wasn't getting many minutes. But against Lee, I think he played 60, and then so just to see that his impact was quite big there. I think he had to play the ball for Crafty's try as well. So so that kind of nuances are picked up by the coaches in review, even if they're not picked up in the stats themselves.
And then a question about opposition stats. Obviously, you're previewing games and getting that information as well. And then someone asked about where we got the from James Butterfield on Facebook. What stat this season has surprised you the most? Just to expand on that in terms of opposition things like that. When you're looking at the numbers around the game as a whole, are you spotting trends? Maybe something's, there might be a rule change and suddenly things are happening differently. Are you feeding that back to the coaching staff?
Sort of. So I think with a lot of the preview that I do, so a lot of teams will score their tries from penalties or from opposition errors, and that's consistent across the league, and things like that really. So then that kind of feeds information for us in terms of that. If we can control what we can control, then that kind of helps us scoring, but also can help us to not concede as well. And then I guess surprising wise, probably pleasantly surprised sometimes with how high some of our numbers are in terms of something like big tackle wins or our tackle efficiency. I think our tackle efficiency is one of the highest in the league. So that's probably not something that, particularly when I'm coding a game that I think too much of, because you kind of caught in it, but afterwards, and then you've kind of export those numbers and you see the tackle efficiencies over 90%. That's quite nice to see. So probably those this year, a lot, the surprising ones have been quite pleasantly surprising.
Yeah, very good. And a question from Instagram from a gentleman called Chev Walker. He asks, what is the one KPI stat that young front rowers and halfbacks have to nail? I'm presuming Chev knows the answer to this, but he's asking you the question.
Young one, I think for the halfbacks, I think you're probably looking at your assists probably more than and about how you can help your teammates kind of thing, rather than getting, I can score an individual try under 16s or under 18s or only reserves or first grade. Well, when the defensive stiffness is better, can you still do that? But whereas if you can assist people, so whether that's tries or line breaks, probably shows a little bit more to your game really, in terms of how you can draw defenders in and how you can use space and numbers to create opportunities. for a middle, probably like things like your tackle efficiency is probably a big one, and then also like the amount of work you get through, so your tackles and your carries, because as you go up through the grades, it's going to be so it's harder to make that impact. So if you can still have that high work rate, then you'll find joy along the way as you go through the pathway type thing.
Yeah, it's those effort areas as well, isn't it? I suppose Jamie Lang, when he's been on the podcast, talks about people in the picture, and if you get a line break, supporting your teammates and things like that, is really important for that side of things. Just a couple wrap up on a couple of interesting ones. A question from Richard Cousins from Facebook asking, do we use AI to assist in modelling or anything like that in terms of the stats for the team?
No, not really. Not in my day-to-day or my week-to-week processes. I mean, the closest thing I probably get to AI is the formulas on Excel. So yeah, no, not really.
Do you think it is something that might grow? Because I know, we've got software that we use, for example, on we use a thing called ScorePlay for the players when we put their images on, and AI scans the face and can tag the players in and things like that. Do you think that something that potentially could?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I think also particularly with the post-match coding, that will probably come in terms of, can you recognize, so you put in to recognize a certain player, and then you can get their meters automatically, so you can get your standard, your carries, your tackles, and your passes, your touches done by AI, and then your kind of more subjective ones done by an analyst. So I think definitely AI will come into sports analytics more generally, but definitely in rugby league as well.
Yeah, you might even get a couple of more hours sleep.
Yeah, maybe.
And then one from Chris Devine, someone I know you know well, on Instagram. Will John be playing for Leeds Hockey Club again when the rugby season is over? Well, what's breaking news? Sky Sports News, yellow banner at the bottom. Is a come and get me plea to Leeds Hockey Club, John? Yeah. Will you be donning the hockey gear again?
Well, possibly. Yeah, I think that's something which kind of try and wrestle with about when I can and when I can't play, and so that is definitely a possibility. I can't make any promises.
Well, I thought you were going to give the Brad Arthur answer there and say Bleasy's dealing with that, and we'll let you know. But we'll have to wait and see there, Chris, whether he's going to be there. Maybe up your offer.
Yeah, well.
Another packet of crisps after the game might swing it for you. John, it's been great to have you on, and fascinating side of the game that probably we don't know too much about. It's a bit of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but it's so invaluable. You can see that from the players' point of view. And I know how much respect that the playing staff and coaching staff have for the work you do. It's great to be able to sort of shine a light on that, especially with our partnership with Leeds Beckett and that route you've come through there. And good luck to all our supporters out there who are getting their A-level results today and making decisions about whether they're going to go to university. I think John and myself are great examples of how you can get involved in professional sport, even if it's not playing the game. And I think you've shown exactly what you've learned through that course. You've been able to implement in professional sport. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcast to stay in touch with all things Leeds Rhinos. We had a fantastic new episode of Box 2 in cooperation with Best Western GB Hotels that came out this week with the one and only Roy Dickinson. If you haven't seen that yet, make sure you check it out. Two of the greatest storytellers in the history of the club, Jamie Jones-Buchanan and Roy Dickinson, get together, and it's brilliant. The story of how Roy played under pseudonyms in Australia during the international ban is worth a watch alone. But Roy's he's heading over to Australia. He's emigrating to Australia in the new year, so it was wonderful to get him in and capture his memories. So make sure you check that out. We've got a new edition of The Knock-On Effect coming out shortly. Jared and Tom are back in the studio later this week, and they'll have a certain England international joining them. Won't give any more away. That'll be out next week, so make sure you tune in for that. And then we'll be back on Monday, of course, with the match review from the game at Castleford. Hopefully it's a win down the lane against the Tigers. It was a tough game there last time, 7-0 at half-time, managed to pull clear in the second half thanks to 2 tries from Harry and Sam and 1 from Ryan Hall. So hopefully it'll be another victory down there. It'll be a big crowd. It's a Saturday afternoon game. Can't wait, John. It's going to be brilliant down there. And hopefully lots of fans travelling down. Remember to give us a 5-star review so that we can keep climbing those podcast charts and spread the word about Leeds Rhinos and all things rugby league. It's been brilliant to get your questions for John today and every week on the Q&A edition so that we can shed a bit more light onto the world of Leeds Rhinos, all the work that goes on behind the scenes that makes sure that Brad and the team can perform come game day out there on the pitch at AMT Henley. A special mention to Ryan Golden and his team who've been doing the pitch renovation whilst we've been away from AMT Henley over the last few weeks. When we come back for the game against Hull KR, brand new surface for the lads to perform on. It's looking fantastic out there. It looks a bit odd. The rugby posts aren't up. Always seems a bit odd when you're wandering around and there's no posts up, but they'll be going back up on Sunday afternoon ahead of the boys returning to training here next week. Thanks for joining us. Always great to bring these your questions to the people, the experts like John, to give us their answers. And we look forward to seeing you again on Monday for the match review. Thanks for joining us.